Welcome to the Body Never Lies podcast. I am today doing another solo episode, and I have decided that I want to talk about something really important, which is understanding your food story. Now, I have had to do a lot of work and sit with myself and journal and all of the things to understand my food story. And you might think, wow, that's really funny, Leila, because you've never been overweight. How can you have a food story? Because aren't food stories like you mean when parents put their kids on diets all the time, or the family's dieting all the time, so the child has like all these negative beliefs around being able to eat and all this kind of stuff. For a lot of people, yes, they have that. But for me, it was not that. And so I want to really touch on this today because this is a really important part of logging and the process that I get clients to do when we do their food log is really recognize their food story, why they eat, what emotions are attached to eating, not eating, etc. So that's what I want to go into today. So let's dive in. Welcome to The Body Never Lies. I'm your host, Leila Lutz. Each week, myself and experts from around the world help you uncover the secret ways your body communicates with you to empower you in your own individual health journey. So from logging, and I think you guys have listened to enough podcasts now, I discovered that I didn't eat enough food. And one of the biggest undoings of my life is having not eaten enough food for most of my life. It's the reason why I had so many health issues. I don't care what health issue I've had, be it mold illness, mast cell activation syndrome, Hashimoto's, rheumatoid arthritis, all the things that I've had, they basically stem down to two major things: stress and the stress of not eating enough food. So this is something that's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. A lot of people want their problem to be like this big, amazing, I don't know, not amazing, but like they just want it to do this thing. Like that, a lot of people would have spent a lot of time blaming the mold illness. But the whole reason I got mold illness is because I didn't have the strength and the resources to deal with it. You know, why do some people get mold illness and some people don't? Yes, there's a test that says some people are genetically more predisposed or whatever. But the thing is that now, 8 years later, I can be around mold and I do not have a reaction to it. So I have recovered from that. So I can tell you wholeheartedly, yeah, and even though I had all the testing done at the time, and yes, I had the gene that gets mold illness and all of the things, I have built up my tolerance to be able to be around mold without having an MCAS or SIRS reaction to it. And so, you know, really looking at your story is so important in your recovery. Because if you don't build a strong enough attachment to how you got to where you got to and how much of it was because of your life and the choices that you made in your life, you'll never get your power back, right? It's just like blaming everything outside of you for the situation you're in. It's never going to get you better, right? What is going to get you better is going, I actually see the holes, the gaps that need to be filled and where I can take the power back in my life. And undereating is a huge problem in society. And I'm sure you guys have heard me say now, I reckon 80% of the people that come to work with me undereat in some way. They undereat total calories, or they undereat vitamins and minerals, or they undereat entire food groups, they undereat protein, or they undereat carbohydrates, whatever it is, they undereat in some way. Even the people who overeat calories, they generally don't have enough vitamins, minerals, nutrition, good food in their diet. Everyone is lacking in food in some way. And, you know, I was definitely lacking in food. I was thin my whole entire life, and I thought I was naturally thin and that my body was always a size 6 to 8. You know, that was just my genetic disposition and whatever. And there's no power in that. Like, I have to say, there is so much power in going back and looking at my life. So when I started logging, and this is a really important part of logging, is not just to log the food that you eat, but to log the thoughts and the actions, right? So what I realized when I started logging is that I could go for a really long time without eating, like a long time. And what I also realized is that I would push eating further and further away. So I would be like, well, I'm just going to get this finished, this task done, and then I'll eat. And then it would turn into, well, I'll just get another task done and then I'll eat. And then it was like, oh, no, I'll do this one more thing and then I'll eat. And then I would have not eaten for the whole day. And then I would be starving, of course. And so I would binge and eat a whole amount of food. So what's really important is to understand that blood sugar is balanced by eating regular meals at regular intervals. And also if you're in a really stressed state, like I was trying to push through that work, like when you don't have any fuel on board, you're running on adrenaline. And when you run on adrenaline and cortisol, that gets quite addictive. And so what I started to realize was that I was an adrenaline and a cortisol junkie. And I really thrived on that state of adrenaline and cortisol. And that state of adrenaline and cortisol had been really useful and I was really comfortable with it, but I was also addicted to it. That state of adrenaline and cortisol had got me, through university, living out of home when I was 17, through university, working 3 part-time jobs, setting up my own business when I was 23, buying my first property when I was 27, just achievement. That stress and cortisol had got me through all of that achievement. I mean, at one point, I was doing like 11 PT sessions in a day, and then I was studying on the weekends. So, I gave up my part-time jobs when I had enough money coming through my PT business, but then I transitioned that into studying and getting more and more, qualifications under my belt while I was running this hectic business of 11-hour sessions back to back. So you can imagine I was only sleeping like 5 hours. So I was just running on adrenaline. And amidst this, I was only eating like, 1,800, 2,000 calories. So I should have been eating about 3,000 calories. And I should have been sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night. And what I started to realize when I started logging was that, I had this ability to go for a really long time without food. And I had been using that for years to prop me up, that adrenaline to prop me up, to push me through. And there was a purpose in this, right? Because I come from a background of being raised by a single mother on very little money. Like we relied on government payments to survive. And I also was the oldest daughter in a broken family. And so I had a lot of responsibility and I got a lot of love and connection and my self-worth from doing things for everybody at the same time as being really smart at school and, achieving a lot at school. So I just got, everyone was like, oh, Leila, you're amazing. You're so mature. You're so this, da, da, da. And that was really how I got my value in the world and understood my place in the world. And I won't go into it too much because I really want to have respect for my parents here, but because they were doing the best that they can. But, there's a lot of stuff in the holistic psychologist about the eldest daughter in a chaotic environment. My parents separated and have a very volatile relationship and still to this day cannot be in the same room together. So I was the one that was always trying to make everything okay and make sure everyone was happy. And I was the good girl who never broke the rules. And I was the one that picked up all the pieces, even from a very, very young age. And I was the responsible one because I didn't want to cause any more chaos or rock the boat or anything like that. So I took on a lot of responsibility from a young age. And on the outside, everyone saw that as Leila was really mature. Leila's really strong. Leila's really brave. Leila's very, all of the things. People just marvel at how clever I was and all of the things rather than anyone going, is she okay? Like that's just really inappropriate for someone at that age to have that much, responsibility and that much on their shoulders. But anyway, so this fueled my fire. Like it's, you have to look at these things, I think, and go, well, there's a lot of good that came out of that because, hey, I finished university and I started my business when I was 23 years old. I'm a very tenacious person and I'm a very dedicated person. And if something needs to be done, I will do it. And if I need to achieve something, I will do it. So, there's a lot of good that came out of that. And so I think it's really important to understand that everything that happened to our life makes us who we are, and we can't change it. So we also need to see the good and the bad side of it, right? So the good side of it was I was extremely independent and I was able to look after myself and financially provide for myself from a very young age. And also I was very capable to change my story. So my story is not the same as my mum's. If I was on my own, I'd be completely financially stable and independent. And so I'd broken that, she didn't pass. I didn't take on that from her. That's what I'm trying to say. My mum, never finished her education and all of those things. So I have a lot of good come out of that. That's what I'm trying to say. But on the flip side of that is this need to constantly be achieving and this need to constantly be producing and this need to constantly be doing the best thing and the next thing. And being like that all the time is like being in a constant state of fight or flight, right? Because that's where it really came from. It comes from creating safety and security in an environment that was not safe and secure. So when you're in constant fight or flight your whole life, and even more so, I'm unfueled, right? I'm not eating to fuel this amount of work. And then I'm also unable to rest. So I can't tell you how many years I worked 7 days a week just because I didn't know how to stop. And you could look back and go, well, you created a business because you work 7 days a week. But when you think about it, like when you honestly think about it, like now that I've really worked on this aspect of myself, most of it was because I was unable to sit down and do nothing. Like I was just completely unable to do that. Whereas now, when I sit down and do nothing, I really, really appreciate sitting down and doing nothing, and I realize it and value it as part of being able to function as a person. Whereas back then it was uncomfortable. I'd think, okay, well, I'm sitting and doing nothing, so I'll create something new for the business. And I'm so passionate about my business and I love what I do so much. And that's just who I am. I'm amazing. I live and I breathe it and all that kind of stuff. So this was something that was really important for me to unpack and get a lot of coaching on. And it's an ever evolving, piece of work, I think. I think honoring that your talents, like keeping them in the light and not having them in the shadow. So the shadow is the workaholic, but the part in the light is just like, like when COVID happened and all of a sudden I couldn't see clients face to face, I just had to come up with a new way to run a business and make money overnight, basically. Lockdown happened overnight and I was able to do that. So that's a talent that I want to have, but I only want it to be available like when I'm at work, not 24/7, 365 days a year. Like we don't need that on holiday. We don't need that at 6 o'clock at night when we're chilling out, right? So it's about putting these things in balance. And so a big part of that person was not eating for very long periods of time because I was too busy to eat. And I see this with people so much. And what really happens when you stop and recognize that you're hungry and you need food? It's kind of like, it's just sitting with yourself, right? And this was the thing for me, is that I was unable to sit with myself. And I realized that this constant adrenaline, it looked so amazing from the outside, and this high achiever and all that stuff also came with constantly skipping meals or eating at another time. And then even when I did eat, so when I first started forcing myself to eat regular meals, I couldn't eat very much because I was so ramped up. So I just ate these little meals. And so then I had to go deeper and go, well, no, you actually have to eat more food than that. And so it was like peeling back layers and layers of myself to understand how much of an adrenaline junkie I was. And this is one of the big reasons why people don't actually like food logging, because it means that you actually have to sit with yourself. You actually have to look at your life and look at the choices that you made and take responsibility for those choices. Like in my adult life, no one has held a gun to my head and said, Leila, keep achieving and you can't eat until you've finished achieving. Nobody's done that. I've done that to myself, right? So part of logging is sitting there and going, wow, this is what I did to myself. And then going through a process of, okay, so why did I do that to myself? Well, I did it because I really wanted to achieve, because if I was a high achiever, I'd be able to fix everything and make everything better. And the truth is that you can never fix everything and make anything better for other people. You just can't. So I had to go to a lot of therapy. So people don't like this part of food logging, but it's a seriously important part. So now, how has that evolved now? Well, now, obviously, I eat 3 to 4 meals a day. When I sit and eat a meal, I sit and eat it. I don't scroll on my phone. I don't work while I'm eating. Like, obviously, sometimes I have to. Like, I've, only got so many hours in a day. I've got a family and I run a business, so I might eat my lunch at my desk, but what happens is I'm super present with my dinner. I'm super present with my breakfast. I, went through a process of actually sitting there and chewing my every single mouthful 25 times and going through the process of being, the first it was the frustration and the, oh my God, what a waste of time, and the boredom and all of the blah, 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 until I finally sat there and was like, eating my food in this really relaxed way, right? And these are like the little steps and the processes that you take. And now, what was Shanti doing the other day? She kept getting up from the table. She was driving me nuts. And I said, it was a real revelation for me. I was just like, okay, I just need to be relaxed when I eat. I need to be relaxed. I just want to sit at the table and we all sit here and we take our time and we taste our food and we talk about our day. And this was a huge revelation for me too. In my family, we never sat down and had meals together because we would always fight and argue. So it was just like, hurry up, each meal and get away from the table. Food for me is love and connection. And I was avoiding that because I didn't have love and connection. And now I have a family and I sit with my family, and I'm so lucky that Sean and I have this value that we always have breakfast and we always have dinner together. And I've really come to realize the power of food and love and connection and sitting and enjoying a meal together. Now, everybody's going to have different beliefs, right? Some people have this belief around food being love and connection, and that's the only love and connection that they have. So they overeat food to get love and connection. For me, it's actually about sitting down, slowing down, enjoying the process, feeling safe, feeling connected, and actually pausing so I could feel all of those feelings. So very different for me. But these like family meals are super important to me, and being in a relaxed state when I'm eating is super important to me. So that's been a long process. That has been a long process. And every evolution of my business, right? Because the truth is I run my own business, the environment changes, like the COVID thing happened. When the COVID thing happened and I was in lockdown and I had so much work to do and homeschooling, I started to see it creep in again. I was like, I'm achieving. No. I've got to actually pause. I've got to set myself working blocks and set myself a lunch break and then sit there and have lunch and eat quietly and slowly and all the things. It was a work in progress. And so this is the other thing that people don't like. They think that they'll recognize something and then they'll just automatically get better. No, actually what happens is that sometimes you need to actually recognize the behavior. Then you need to sit with the behavior and the discomfort of that behavior for a while. And then you can start playing around with doing things differently or sometimes you actually have to force yourself to be uncomfortable, to do something different so that you can change that. And you have to sit in that discomfort for like a month, 2 months before you truly clear that and move on from it. I was listening to a little clip the other day on Instagram, and I want to go flag this because I want to go back and listen to this guy's podcast. And he was talking about giving up alcohol, right? And this is really interesting because if you read Gabor Mate's book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, which is all about addiction, he talks about how we're all addicted to something. And I was definitely addicted to the adrenaline. I was an adrenaline junkie and I was addicted to being busy. And all of these behaviors go into that and support that. And it's really interesting listening to this guy talk about giving up alcohol, right? So we see alcohol as a problem, but we don't see being busy and achieving being a problem, or skipping lunch every day because we're so busy being a problem, or not being able to sit down and relax and eat not being a problem because, wow, I'm so amazing, I was off doing my business things and achieving. But we do understand alcohol as being a problem, but really it's the same thing. And it was so interesting listening to him talking about, he did dry January and then it turned into dry February and then it turned into dry March, because he really hadn't thought that he grasped the reason why he needed to give up alcohol. Like, he still didn't understand why. And he said it took him 9 months to understand, 9 months to understand that addiction and what it was about, and to actually find clarity and meaning behind it. And then he actually never drank again. But he said it took him 9 months to make peace with that. And I find this so interesting because when you look at what Gabor Mate says, is that we all have these addictions, and I was addicted to being busy, and it took me a very long time. And I think that's helpful for you to understand, is that changing behavior, especially when it's trying to cover up something, which so much behavior is, so my busyness and achievement was a covering up the lack of love and connection that I felt. So, and, funnily enough, I really wanted love and connection, but I made myself so busy. I didn't have time for a relationship and all of the things. So it took me a really long time to sit there and be relaxed and eat and be relaxed. And I had to keep forcing myself to do it. For a while, it was forcing myself, and then it got easier, so I would just show up to do it. And after a while, now years later, it's become an unconscious thing, and it's also just something that I just expect. Hey, can we not have any running around while I'm trying to eat? Let's just eat and be relaxed, And so that was a real revelation for me, actually demanding that everybody sit at the table and chill out and be relaxed while I was eating. So that's a huge thing for me, really coming face to face with the adrenaline junkie. And I could see it in my logs, the adrenaline junkie, and the way that I would set up stuff for myself to do, and new things to do in my program, and all of the things, right? It's a revolution as well. Like, I have this year taken on a coaching program for my business, and part of that is because I really want to work 5 hours a day. But it's really hard to get to the point where you can work 5 hours a day if you still have this adrenaline junkie and this addiction to achieving. Because if you only worked 5 hours a day, what are you going to do with the other, 18, 19 hours a day? Obviously, you're going to sleep for 8, so what are you going to do for the other 10 hours of the day? So it's like, well, okay, well, then I'm going to have to be with myself, right? Obviously, I've got housework and I've got stuff, and it's like, but the whole point is of working 5 hours a day is to know who I am without a career and have a life outside of that. So you have to actually get comfortable with that, or you'll never work 5 hours a day. You'll find a reason to always work 10, 12 hours a day. So it's an ever amount. What am I trying to say? It's a constant work in progress. That's what I want to say. And I think a big part of that is as well as like cherishing moments. Like, I had this beautiful moment yesterday. Like, I was getting quite stressed about something and I was trying to finish something, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and hang out with Shanti, because the most beautiful thing about children is this no time, no mind, the thing that they have. And it's actually a part of us that we've denied, and especially someone like me who grew up too quickly and was an adult for a very young age, is that I don't know how to experience things like a child would experience them. And rather than blaming my parents for that and holding a grudge against them, it is my responsibility to go, well, how can I be more childlike? How can I play more? One of the easiest ways to do that is just go and hang out with my daughter and be her little mate, And yesterday we were colouring in and we put Swan Lake on. We both love Swan Lake. And I was just colouring and I just had this moment of like no mind, no space and time, just colouring in the lines and listening to the music and just being in the moment with her. And it was so amazing. Now, obviously, if you don't have children, that doesn't mean you can't access this part. You can go and play a game, you can be with a child. I found it really helpful having a dog before I had Shanti to help me access this part, and playing with the dog and wrestling with the dog and like actually giving up a part of your day and going, this is going to be a no space, no time, no rules, no structure, no order part of my day. And I'm just going to completely surrender to that. I just, that is, you have to force yourself to do it. It's really uncomfortable. But once you get to this part of your life where you no longer have that addiction, like the feeling of just being able to sit in that is just so amazing. I cannot tell you. So that's one aspect of my issue with food. The other aspect goes back a lot further. And, I think this is really important for you all as well, is to look at like what your family believes about food. And if you have taken on those beliefs. So a lot of girls will say to me their mums dieted in front of them a lot, or they didn't eat with them because they were dieting, or, those are the more kind of obvious ones. But I'm going to tell you one that's not so obvious, and that took me a long time to realize. When I was growing up, we didn't have enough food. My mum was on a government support payment, Centrelink, we call that in Australia, and we did not have enough money. Like we really had to stretch that money. It took hats off to my mum. Like she ended up, owning her own home and paying that off, but she lived on the smell of an oily rag, as we did as kids too. And my mum could stretch food really far. But as I grew up, and I became more and more active, what I started to realize was I was bloody hungry all the time. And now that I look back at it and I know how much food we're meant to eat, I just did not have enough food. And this is it was quite a little bit traumatic actually for me to realize this. Because, I was sad. I was just like, my mum didn't have the resources to give me more food. And I remember asking for more food and she would get really angry at me. And she would, sort of insinuate that I was asking too much. And, we were very lucky to have what we have. And, this was really challenging. And there are a few habits that came out of this. So one, obviously, I'd just never eaten enough most of my life. And I had a lot of health issues from my teens. I had a lot of issues around my cycle, a lot of pain, migraines, all kinds of things. But I did play a lot of sport at school and I needed more food. And the flip side of this was that, my mum fed us a very healthy food. She gave us an Asian diet, so rice, little bits of meat, fruit. We ate very healthily, but we just didn't eat enough. When I would go to my dad's on the weekend, my dad would just take us all out all the time because he can't really cook. And so he would just take us out, and he would take us out to like places like McDonald's and the pub and stuff like that. And when we were out, I would binge. I would eat so much food when I went to my dad's every second weekend. And there's a lot of patterns with me in my behaviors that are all or nothing. And because my parents, like, that, it's, as far as people go, that they're the total opposite in every single way. And there was a lot of tension between the two of them and very unconscious kind of fighting for the spot as the best parent or the, not, I don't even know if that's what you would say, but it's like if my mum chose red, my dad would choose blue, just to be different, you know? And they were so opposite. Like, I'd sometimes even wonder how they even got together. But, you know, like, my dad would drink. My mum never drank. My dad would spend heaps of money, never save. My mum would save every cent and never spend a cent. They were just like, in every area of life, they were complete polar opposites. And this set me up for a lot of all or nothing behavior, because when you're a child, you try and be like one parent to get connection with them, and then you have to go be like the other parent to get connection with them. And I had a lot of all or nothing behaviors. And one of this was around food. So when I was with my mum, we didn't have enough food, and then I would go to my dad and we would have heaps of food, like, and, you know, you could order whatever you want, and I would have heaps of food and I would binge eat. And in my teens, I actually got a little bit chubby because I was spending a lot more time at my dad's. And it was very momentary, but I just remember this conversation between my mum and my dad about why I was getting so chubby. And my mum said it must be because I was drinking so much milk, and then she stopped me from drinking milk. So we used to be able to drink as much milk and water as we liked. And I think I used to drink like 1.5 to a litre of milk every day because I was so bloody hungry, and I did love milk. And I remember my mum cutting milk out of my life and made me devastated, and she thought that was what was making me put on weight. But it was actually because I was eating so much crap at McDonald's when I went to my dad's on the weekends. But I remember them having this fight about my dad saying, you can't, like, take milk away from her. That's ridiculous. And it was almost like, because it was his favourite thing. My dad loves milk. He still drinks litres of milk. It was almost like because it was his favourite thing, she had to take it away from me. Anyway, so there's this kind of weird thing with my parents and their constant need to fight with each other and, you know, take different sides. And so I didn't drink milk for years. I thought it was really bad for you. Anyway, back to this problem of not eating enough. And now as I've gotten older and I really understand with my mum, it goes even deeper than that. And this was really heartbreaking for me to truly understand. And I think this is one of the really important parts as an adult, is to try and get to a place. Like, there's a lot of traumatic stuff has happened in my life. My parents are both very traumatized people. They grew up in very traumatic environments. My mum especially. And it took me a lot of therapy to get to a place where I could actually hear what she has to say and not think that she was trying to offload on me or download on me, but actually sit and listen with a curious mind to understand more about her, understand more about me and our relationship and the negative beliefs that have been passed on through generations. So I only really was able to do that in recent years. And one of the things that I learnt, I always knew that my mum was sexually abused. I always knew that. But this new revelation to me was that she was sexually abused by a family friend, and he was very wealthy. And he would, you know, see her for these sessions, for want of a better word. And afterward, he would give her money. And my mum was so ashamed of this money and that she couldn't hold on to this money, that what she would do is she would go down the street to where all the poor people were. In Malaysia, and as most, you know, in Asian countries, there's a huge disparity between wealthy and poor. And she would buy all the poor people food. And what she came to see was just how little they had to eat. So as a result of this, my mum's had a lot of problems with money. Money's very dirty, but also food and having enough food to eat. There's a link there. One, because of, you know, how she was able to buy this food, but two, because of she saw just how much poor people didn't eat. And so I do think that there's something tied in there with us not being able to eat food, because even now, like, I've I'm not in that situation that I was in when I was growing up. I'm not a rich person, but I'm definitely wealthy in comparison to how I grew up. And when I buy food for my family who are all still in this financial state, they will think that they have to make that food last for many meals. And I'm like, no, 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 I just bought that food for one meal. And they all have, like, they're all challenged by that. And this is something, you know, even I'm feeling emotional talking about this, but this belief that food and, you know, there's a dirtiness to eating, there's a real privilege to having good food goes back so deep, so deep. And I had to do a lot of work on this to clear this from generation, but it also really helped me understand this. It really helped me understand my mum and the choices that she made and the way she behaved towards me. And it helped me disconnect that from me. So it's not, you know, I think this is a really important part growing up, is that, yes, you have to understand that your parents were doing the best that they could at that time. And you also need to look at the way you've taken on that information and the way you've put that into your own life, and take responsibility for the fact that you took that on in a certain way. You will get nowhere blaming your parents for passing that information on to you. So when I say we didn't have enough money for food, I have so much empathy for my mum. I have so much empathy for her. But even now, looking at her, she will always save some of her meal. She cannot finish the plate. She'll always save it. Or, you know, if someone doesn't finish a meal, she will collect all the scraps and she will eat them for leftovers the next day. Like, she cannot, you know, even if I bought her all the best food in the world and said to her, I'm paying for your food for the rest of your life, she would still make it go for weeks. I'd go to her house and she'd probably have it all in the freezer, right? It's made me understand so much about myself and my problems with food and how I got to where I am today. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself because obviously I believe so much that healthy food is so important for you, and healthy food is expensive. It is expensive, and it has become a privilege to be able to afford healthy food. And so I had to do a lot of work on, you know, releasing the guilt of actually having the money to afford the food that I have. And I've had to do some work on that. So I think I just really wanted to share this with you today. I'm a little bit emotional now because I haven't really talked about this. But I think it's really important to sit and look at your story, you know. And own your story, you know, but also realize that it is just a story. Like, that's not my truth. I have money and I can afford amazing food. And actually healing that trauma for my mum, I can't heal it for her. She, you know, I can't, but to move that forward is to actually, you know, take the money that I earned really well and from hard work, and buy really good healthy food as a gift to myself because I deserve that. And what do I get from that? I get amazing energy to be able to do what I do, to be able to pass that on to other generations. I get to feed my daughter amazing food so that she has the energy to go on and do what she wants to do. And I look at her and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's this amazing person that cares so much about other people. So I'm teaching her to fuel herself so she can pay things forward. It's really important that we don't deny ourselves things, that we actually give ourselves things so that we can put good energy out into the world. And I've had to do a lot of work on that to believe that, rather than, you know, end up a person who always gave everything away to everyone who was poor and worse off than me at the expense of myself, because that was a habit that I used to have. So, you know, I think that whatever you have been through is going to shape who you are, and it is your choice whether that turns out to be a positive or a negative. we can't blame our parents for what happened to us. There's this beautiful world of coaching and therapy that allows us to uncover these hidden parts of ourselves and work through them and change them into good things. And one of the biggest things I will say about coaching is true healing is learning how to parent yourself. And true healing and parenting yourself equals I see that part of myself that is hurt and wounded, and I'm going to take care of that part of myself. And that means taking the responsibility for that part, not blaming the past, not blaming your parents. It's taking responsibility and holding yourself. And that means spending time with yourself, being with yourself. It also means doing things that you don't like doing. It means showing up for yourself every day. It means being consistent. It means being boring. You know, when you become a parent, you realize how important this is, right? Like at the moment, Sean and I've started giving Shanti chores and pocket money. And the pocket money is not associated with the chores. We've decided I don't want her to get money for doing jobs around the house. That's just part of being in the family, is doing those jobs. And if she doesn't do the job, there's a consequence. And the consequence is that the family doesn't function properly, and therefore Sean and I have more work to do. So she misses out on television or whatever it is. Now, the pain and suffering that she complains about sometimes having to do these chores, it would be so much easier and it would be so much more quiet in the house if I just did the chores for her. But the thing is that then she'll never learn. And as a mother, it is my job to teach her to do hard things and to consistently do the things that she needs to do every day to contribute to her life, to become the person that she wants to be, or the best version of herself. That is the same thing when you parent yourself. Getting up and making food for yourself, even when you don't want to, is parenting yourself. Feeding yourself is parenting yourself. Nourishing yourself is parenting yourself. Showing up to the gym every day is parenting yourself. Telling yourself to go and do 2,000 steps now, to knock that off, the 10,000 steps for the total day, even though you don't want to, is parenting yourself. We have to parent ourselves. We cannot wait for our broken parents to come and parent us the way we wished that the way, we wanted them to parent us, because they can't. They can't. We're grown-ups now, and also they didn't have the capacity to do it in the first place. I guess what I'm trying to say is too many of my clients sit in this, I never got this, or I've never been taught how to cook. I've never learned how to cook. Do some cooking lessons. Being a grown-up is going to learn how to cook and take responsibility for yourself. I am feeling like I'm getting a little bit ranty, and I think that's just a little bit emotional after what I just said. I hope this lands for you somewhere. I hope this helps you on your healing journey. I hope it helps as well, because I feel like a lot of people say to me, oh, it's so easy for you, Leila. You just make the food. Like you're so organized and you just make the food. And the easiness that I have with that every single day now has come from years and years and years of work. I still look at my food and think, oh my God, that is so much food. There are so many people in the world who do not get this much food to eat. Oh, you can hear me, I'm emotional now. I still have that trauma, but I show up for myself every day and I make myself eat the food. I'm still working on this trauma, obviously. I still have a sadness for my mum, but it's not my job to rescue her. I can't go back in time and solve that problem for her. It's for me to pay forward. And you know what? Maybe this is why I've ended up doing what I'm doing, trying to teach every single woman in the world to eat more food so that we can stop having thyroid issues, hormonal issues, like all of these problems just from not eating enough food. So I encourage you today, if you haven't signed up for my course, my God, how can I not plug my course? If you haven't signed up for my course, I encourage you to, because in the assessment, we're doing 5 weeks, and one of the modules is going to be on the emotional aspects of why we don't heal and what, the problems people have with logging and how important this is. So I encourage you, if you have not yet, to sign up for my course. Go to www.thebodyneverlies.com.au and jump on there. And otherwise, if that's not there for you yet, that's fine. I won't be running it free again, but I will always have things to help you. When you log, I really want you to sit with yourself and ask yourself, okay, so I didn't eat lunch. Why? Why didn't I eat lunch? Or what was in my head? What was I doing? What was I thinking? If you are an overeater, it's like, look at the food that you ate and take yourself to that moment of just before you decided to eat that food. What was going on for you? Is it because you felt something that was uncomfortable? Is it because, actually you just didn't eat enough the rest of the day, so then you went binged on this whole bucket of ice cream or whatever you did? Like, start to actually take the time and sit with yourself. Pretend you are sitting with a child and you are holding space for that child, and you were saying to that child, my darling, what was going on for you? As parents, our job is to sit with our children and say, okay, that was not a great choice, but let's workshop the choice together and understand how to make a better choice next time. And part of that is sitting with upset, guilt, shame, worry, and letting that be and processing that so that you can move forward. You need to be able to do that for yourself, and I encourage you to do that for yourself. I'll leave that with you. Sorry, it was a bit of an emotional episode today, but I really hope this helps you, and I will either see you in the course or I will be back here with you next week for another episode of The Body Never Lies. I'm Leila Lutz, and you've been listening to The Body Never Lies. If you haven't yet, please go to your favourite podcast app and subscribe, rate and review this podcast. All the resources and references from this episode are waiting for you on my website, leilalutz.com. Just click on podcast and look for this episode. Now join me next week for another episode of The Body Never Lies. Thank you so much for listening.
Free from all old stories I've been told, I walk through the valley of my own shadow.
If you've been enjoying all the episodes of The Body Never Lies, but you're wondering, Leila, where do I even start with implementing all these great things that I'm learning? Well, I've created something just for you, and I'm so passionate about you getting access to it that I am giving it away for free. The Body Never Lies Insights course helps women over 35 who are sick of all the tests with no answers uncover the root cause of their long list of unexplained symptoms with a scientifically proven self-assessment tool. Over 4 live workshops, I'm going to take you through the assessment that I take every single client through to help them establish where they are truly at with their health. The assessment includes all the things that their doctor and quite a lot of other practitioners, to be honest, have never asked them, and will leave you feeling 100% certain that no, it is not all in your head. Your body never lies. Whether you've been eating clean and self-researching for years, maybe you're sick of giving up all of the different food groups, maybe you've tried a few pro-metabolic approaches and it's made you worse, or even if you've just arrived at a crossroads of knowing you need to do something different for your health and you don't know where to start, this assessment tool is for you. If you want to get this for free, and I probably won't do this again, then head over to thebodyneverlies.com.au and register now. We are starting on January 15, so you can make 2025 your best year yet. Of course, places are limited, so make sure you get in because it is first in, best dressed.